Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. And now your host, EYAL Levy.
Welcome to the URM Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It's crazy to think that we are now on our 7th year. Don't ask me how that all just flew by, but it did. Man, time moves fast. And it's only because of you, the listeners. If you'd like us to stick around another 7 years, and there's a few simple things you can do that would really help us out, I would endlessly appreciate if you would, number 1, share our episodes with your friends. Number 2, post our episodes on your Facebook and Instagram and tag me at EYAL Levy URM Audio and at URM Academy, and of course, our guest. And number 3, leave us reviews and 5-star reviews wherever you can. We especially love iTunes reviews. Once again, thank you for all the years and years of loyalty. I just want you to know that we will never charge you for this podcast, and I will always work as hard as possible to improve the episodes in every single way. All we ask in return is a share, a post, and tag us. Oh, and one last thing. Do you have a question you would like me to answer on an episode? I don't mean for a guest. I mean for me. It can be about anything. Email it to me at eyal@urm.academy. That's EYAL@urm.academy. There's no .com on that. It's exactly the way I spelled it. And use the subject line, Answer Me EYAL. All right, let's get on with it. Hey, everybody, EYAL here. One last thing before we get into the episode. I want to apologize to you about some of the production quality in the back half of this episode. We were having tons of technical difficulties, and we were not doing this in person. We do this remotely. And there are some errors that we just cannot fix. Like, we can't RX them out, and the option becomes either release the episode or not. I mean, this is the nature of the beast. Sometimes there will be technical problems, but I personally feel that it's not so bad that it's worth scrapping the episode. I had a great time, and I think you guys would love to hear it. So my apologies for that. Please enjoy the episode. My guest today is Charlie Massabo, who is a French music producer, composer, and songwriter based out of Miami. He was previously an artistic director in Europe for companies such as Mad Waves in the UK and New Wave Labs, and he's worked on several projects for Google, Sony PlayStation, Ubisoft, and many, many more. He then moved to LA, started a studio, and started doing work for labels such as Epitaph, Fearless, Sony, Beeler Brothers, Season of Mist, among many, many others, and including artists such as Falling in Reverse, The Word Alive, Luke Holland, Davey Suicide, and a bunch more. He has credits across multiple music genres, including rock, metal, pop, hip-hop, EDM, and his studio has been featured in a Google Pixel 3 Grammy commercial. This dude has done a lot of stuff. So that said, I introduce you Charlie Massabo. Charlie Massabo, welcome to the URM Podcast.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
So I saw that you're in Miami, right?
Yes.
Are you part of the wave of people that's leaving LA?
No. So I wanted to be in Miami way prior to the pandemic. I lived in LA for 10 years, and I'm French. Miami is way closer to Europe for my family, all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to get out of the scene I was in LA. So I moved here end of 2019, and I was, bi-coastal till the pandemic. And since the pandemic, I'm here with my family.
Do you find that there's just as much opportunity there compared to LA for you? Or does it even matter where you are?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was pretty worried. When I first moved here, I was like, damn, this is going to be tough. But actually, it's kind of weird to say that. But, thanks to the pandemic, everyone from New York, LA has been moving here or in Austin. So it's been really interesting at the studio, really eclectic, versatile, multicultural sessions. And, Miami is pretty open. So we can keep working here, kind of. To a certain extent, but we work way more than all my homies in LA.
I didn't realize that people were migrating to Miami. I thought that they were going to Nashville and Austin, but I never heard about Miami.
It's crazy, man. The amount of A&Rs that are sitting in the couch here since September, October, moving from LA, moving from New York, especially from New York, actually, like people from New York, it's like for them, they're like, wait, I can be in Miami and spend like, a quarter of what I'm spending in New York, and I can be by the beach. If you're gonna sit in front of Zoom all day, maybe it's better to be close to the beach. You know what I mean? Instead of spending like 15K on your rent to be in Manhattan and not being able to go out.
And live in a closet.
Yeah, exactly.
Pandemic aside, do you feel like in order to have a successful career, you need to be where the industry is, or do you think that almost doesn't matter?
For me, it matters a lot. You're talking to a French guy here from, a really small town in France, and nothing was going on. And back in the days, no internet, like for me, it was like a massive, like my first move was to UK and then Ireland and then California, and I had to be there. It's really important to be where the scene is to me.
How did Ireland factor into that? I haven't really heard much about a music scene in Ireland.
Yeah, no, it's like what happened is that my first band in France, I was in a metal band called Sick, and that band got a few tours there, and I ended up, like, I was already recording and like engineering, and I ended up like, producing a bunch of bands there, local bands. And at some point I was just in Limerick, like pretty much like all the time. Like I spent like close to like 11 months in Limerick just producing bands there So it just happened like this. Like Ireland called me. I didn't go there. Like when I went to California, I really wanted to be there. Ireland, I was just like, cool, like, I have some business there. Let's go.
When you went to California, how much of a risk were you taking? Was it a scary thing, or do you feel like you were already established enough to where you knew that you'd be able to make it work?
Well, I had a bunch of connects already, like before like getting into the rock stuff. I was working for a company in UK that was doing music content for Google. So I was going to San Francisco or Palo Alto often. And so I already had like some kind of network to get some gigs there. And that producer, Mud Rock, like that guy like really liked my songwriting and all this kind of stuff. So like he was also really welcoming to have me in his studio. So yeah, it was risky because I already had my studio in the south of France. I was kind of like not established, but like I was comfortable, and I had to leave everything to make that happen. So yeah, a little bit, but it was more like good anxiety than anything else,
My theory on moving to a place like LA, and I'm not trying to stop anybody. I think if that's where people think they should go, then go.
Yeah.
I've always thought that it's better to go if you already have a network, because if you just show up with no network, nothing, it's going to be very, very rough.
I mean, I already had a network, and like, I already had the experience. Like a bunch of A&Rs from Sony in France connected me to A&Rs there. Like I was pretty comfy on that end. But like, yeah, I saw so many people coming in and out, like thinking like, they would just show up and like things would blow up, and this is not how it works.
Here I am. I'm ready. And LA doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like Paris. Paris is the same vibe. You just don't show up and make it happen. It's like someone has to call you first. And also it was like a genre thing. Like, like in Europe, I was doing that. I've been working with Falling in Reverse and like this type of band a lot, like early 2000, like 2013, 14, 15. And I moved to LA like in 2012. And back in these days in Europe, beside Bring Me the Horizon, like bands were not really inclined to like add like EDM or trap or, like a lot of synths. And this is where I come from. Like, like my background is more synths than guitars. And, when I moved to LA, I was like, damn, like they are actually looking for that uniqueness, and that's why I wanted to be there, because I felt like I could do these things when in Europe people were kind of like, what the heck, like this is not metal, dude. So, you know what I mean?
Actually, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because my band 10 years before that was doing a lot of electronics in our music.
Yeah.
And the metal scene
was shitting on you.
Yeah. I mean, like we still got the record deal and did all that, but like it really, the amount of hate that we got for using electronics was ridiculous. Ridiculous, especially considering that 10 years later, that became a cutting edge thing to do in heavy music.
Yeah, who made that happen? Who are the bands that actually made it okay? Do you think it's Bring Me the Horizon?
I think Bring Me the Horizon is one of them. I think the bands that my partner Joey Sturgis worked on, like Attack Attack and stuff.
Asking Alexandria.
Yeah, those bands. But then also, I think that there's bands like Dimmu Borgir who have been using outside elements like that forever. And I think by the end of the 2000s, there were so many different types of heavy bands using synth that it just became accepted. I don't think it was any one band.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Dimmu Borgir, they didn't have the actual like EDM feel, trap feel, but the orchestrations were crazy. Like I remember also Vader, like to go even deeper in the heavy stuff, like, and I think it's like as long as it was minor, it was fine. And when that feel of like major showed up in the middle of nowhere, a little bit, a little too happy or whatever, like all the metalheads were like, what the heck, dude? So, yeah.
So when you started doing that kind of stuff with heavy bands, did you feel like you were doing something cutting edge with them?
I mean, cutting edge, like I don't have this pretension.
Well, something new. How about that? Doing something that hasn't really been done.
Yeah. I think a little bit. I mean, especially from where I come from. I always look at it like from where I come from. I was like, damn, like this is something pretty new. And here's the deal. It's like before getting it into actual bands I worked with in LA, I was already doing this prior to that style to become, I would say, like popular. So I always felt like I was part of this, and I know I'm not a pioneer of this, style, but yeah, it really felt fresh. It actually felt fresh. Like it opens, like bending genres and adding different like colors to a music that is like to me a little limited, like metal, because like, yeah, you expect like big distortion and big kick in your face the whole time. Like that was really interesting to me because I was like, damn, like we can go from this into a pop chorus. Like we can use all that to actually, create like a new type of sound. And I loved experimenting. Like I felt like I was like experimenting every day as much as I wanted, and it was fun and it was accepted, Like remember in France, like people are really, really close-minded on this kind of stuff. It's like you really have to like, if you're rock, you're rock. If you're metal, but you can't be like going from a rock verse into a heavy chorus, like, so for me, it was amazing.
I don't know if it's like this now, but my experience with the European market or scene is that it's very, very divided among genres. Very
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They take that shit seriously.
Yeah, dude. Like I remember when I had a band, like we were always talking about the guys in the back with the crossed arms. Like you go to play your rock show and like you actually have a pit and then you have like 200 dudes in the back that are just judging. Like they paid for their ticket, but they're all like analyzing what's going on instead of like enjoying the music or actually trying to get the vibe, being like, is that okay? Can they go like this on that chorus? Like, can they really do this type of breakdown? And looking at each other like this. It's pretty, like looking back, it's pretty funny actually.
Is this acceptable?
Yeah, exactly. It's hilarious because metal music doesn't, it's not, you don't become a millionaire quick, if you do. So it's like, it's pretty funny to see that like, for such an underground movement, people could be so close-minded sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's interesting though, that for such an underground movement, it really is, I think, a lot bigger than people realize. And its staying power is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, for something that really has only a few times has it ever been embraced by the mainstream for like very, very short periods of time. I
mean, in Europe, dude, like the mainstream, I feel like the last mainstream beside Gojira, like Slipknot, and then like I'm kind of like talking mainstream. I missed out on something, but like, yeah, it was... I'm trying to figure out like what happened like after 2006 in Europe, type stuff. What's your take right now on like metal music?
My take on metal music right now is there's a good side and a bad side. The bad side is that the mega bands are getting old, and that's concerning, obviously, because I'm not sure who's coming up behind them. Like, who's going to be the next Slipknot? You know, at some point, Metallica is going to retire. Bands like Metallica and Slipknot help the metal economy tremendously. They provide so many jobs and so many opportunities, and just, you know, they help keep the engine moving for sure. No matter what people think about their music or anything like that, just pure economics, bands like Slipknot, Metallica, even bands like Avenged Sevenfold have a huge positive influence on the entire metal scene. So what's concerning to me is who's next. Now, I do think that there's some possible contenders, like Bring Me the Horizon, you know, could take the place of one of those bands. Architects is coming up pretty hard right now.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe they could do that too. But my concern is that, you know, 10 years from now, are we going to have mega bands like that are engines to the metal economy? That's a question in my mind. However, on the other hand, I feel like artistically, metal is in a very good place. After being in kind of a dark spot for a while, I think that, at least over here, the genre lines almost don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And people are being more creative than ever. I think that the productions are starting to get more and more real sounding again, though still huge and polished, which is cool. There's more of an emphasis on playing. Like, I think there's some really good stuff coming out, and the youngest generation has a lot of talent in it too. So I actually have a lot of hope for it artistically. I'm concerned about it commercially.
Yeah, I mean, what I see now, like on the production side, is like, you know, especially because I'm in Miami, like these people know here, these artists, they know I come from like a heavy rock background, but now all of them are like kind of like looking for getting that energy in their tracks. And I've been doing collabs with Easy Beats, with Walshy from Major Lasers here, like doing like absolutely different stuff. There is no guitars, you know what I mean? There is no distortion, but they actually are looking for that energy. So I'm like, oh, okay, fast forward, they're going to be producers like me starting to put this type of, you know, metal sound into like Afro beats or dancehall or, you know, like just a hip hop production, and then the movement is going to change. I feel like, you know, I had a discussion with Walshy Fire a few days ago, and it was saying something really interesting. It was like, I think that genres are disappearing, and it's just going to be a movement, you know, or it's going to be like a mood. It's like slowly, and he sees it with Major Lazer, you know, like it's so eclectic what they do. And it's like slowly, like people are not going to really care about genre, but they're going to be like, what kind of music do you do? Like, do you do angry music? Do you do sad music? Do you do happy music? And then every mood would, you know, incorporate whatever, you know, it could be like you make happy music, you know, you mix pop punk and sugar pop, you know, and you know what I mean? So I found that pretty interesting. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I think, and I know this for a fact, a lot of my friends who have like a foot in pop or hip hop are all telling me that everybody wants guitars now. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Machine Gun Kelly. Gun Kelly is, I mean, he's not the first one to have successfully done the crossover, but I think he's the most famous one.
And the most recent one, too.
But I think that really this started with trap music a few years ago, trap metal, where, you know, it's not really metal, but it's got something about it, like, fits with metal in a weird way. I think that trap getting so big, and then eventually you get to Machine Gun Kelly, I think that you're going to start seeing more and more guitar and heaviness in popular music, which is great. So maybe the mega band will come out of that.
Yeah, I just did like a couple of songs with these kids from Atlanta, Ayo and Theo. Like pure, you know, trap, hip-hop artists. Both songs, guitars, all the way. I'm not saying like heavy guitars, but like they're looking for that sound. And not just like for emo trap, you know, like not coming from Lil Peep type stuff, like to actually like more of a Red Hot Chili Pepper type guitar, like, you know, Blood Sugar Sex Magic type guitar. And I think that's really interesting, and that gets me really excited. That gets me really excited because I see the you know, the way they see the track. And it's not just beats anymore. They actually see the, you know, what they can do with the guitar. And like, you know, working with trap artists, like this guy don't work like the same way we write songs with rock artists. They just go improvise. They are super spontaneous. And having them like actually interact with guitars is really fun. I have a lot of fun doing this.
It makes me hopeful because, I mean, I'm sure you've heard people say that, guitar music is dead, guitar is dead, but that's bullshit.
I have my 2 cents on this.
What are your 2 cents?
I don't think guitar music is dead. Like, we all still listen to a good old Led Zeppelin. Any culture, any ethnicity, like they listen to classic rock and shit like this. I think what happened is a lot of singers kind of lost their message. Like, there is no more message in rock music. This is how I've been feeling since 2017. Meaning, I write a lot, and being thrown into sessions where, the way I see it is like, okay, cool. Like, I can write a cool riff, I can create a good ambience for this part of the song, or I see it on the producer/composer side. I never thought that I would actually come up with lyrics for someone else. And to me, it's like, when I started screaming in a mic a long time ago, I was mad. I had something to be mad about. I was pointing things like politically or relationship or taboo, like all this kind of stuff. And now I feel like people in the rock world come in the room like pop artists, meaning like, yeah, let's make a smash, let's make a hit, and the discussion is not like, how are we disruptive? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a lot of heavy bands right now that are not being disruptive anymore. So it lost a little bit of authenticity and spontaneity, and people, like, they get this, you know what I mean? Like Gojira, for example, they're really about their message. This is why it works. I love their music, but like, I can talk about, Whitechapel or stuff like that, or Morbid Angel. Like, there is references in there, but like, they have a good message. And I feel like this is what's missing right now with metal. It's like people that actually come up with, here is something that really matters to me and I want to talk about it. And it's not about the riffs or the guitars. Like, this is more about like that message get kind of lost. Like, to me, it's like, it's against the culture, the metal culture, to actually have an extra songwriter in the room. Yeah, have a producer or someone that can help you with the composition, but the message should be something that comes from the singer 1000%, and it should be convinced about it. You know what I mean? This is how I feel. I think that's why like rock music kind of disappeared, I mean, disappeared is really French of mine, but you know what I mean?
Disappeared is a relative term, but I know exactly what you're saying. I've said a lot that I feel like the danger got removed from metal, and I think that we're kind of saying the same thing.
It's PC, dude. It's politically correct.
Yes.
It's like back in the 90s, Rage Against the Machine, I don't think they were like calculating the repercussions of the shit they were saying. And now I feel like I'm in the writing session and I'm like, damn, like, it's okay. Like, yeah, go for it. Take the risk. Like, like, it's like this generation metal is not really compatible right now. As it's not politically correct. It should not be. It should be disruptive. It should be like this. And people should love or hate. This should not be just, okay, it's going to work out or it's going to be a hit. Like, it has nothing to do with that, in my opinion.
That's why I think the trap metal stuff has done so well, because it's dirty. It's dirty, and it speaks to where young people actually are. If I think back to the 90s, you mentioned Morbid Angel. Going to a Morbid Angel show in the 90s was a kind of a dangerous situation. It really was. I'm not saying that it's cool to get hurt at a show or something like that, but I'm saying that that vibe was super dangerous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, Rage Against the Machine, first show I went to, I was 14, and I was scared. I was scared to be in that pit. Like, people were there to it was not just a little pogo, like people were there to take it out, So, yeah, it was a different vibe, and you were tough. Like, you were a tough guy if you were in the pit back in the days,
So the thing is, though, I don't think that energy has disappeared. I just think it moved to another genre, because people still feel those same things.
Travis Scott, dude. Have you been to a Travis Scott show?
I have never been to a Travis Scott show.
Yeah, that was the energy. Like, as he says, like, they rage, That reminded me of, like, this crazy energy of metal early 2000, like up to early 2000, I really hope, like, this new generation, as you said, like, is going to bring that back into rock music.
I hope so too. When you're working with artists, because I mean, you're a songwriter, where do you draw the line then between that ideal that you're talking about of an artist 1000% bringing their message to the table versus you doing your job?
I only work with like a hand of rock artists now. I've been working way more with rappers and pop artists because I feel that I have, there is more spontaneity in these sessions. Rock artists, I mean, to me, like a dude like Ronnie Radke, he has a saying, I help him with melodies. Like we put tracks together, but this guy has his lyrics. You like it or not, this is him, and I respect that.
Oh yeah, he is who he is.
Yeah, and I love that shit. Like to me, that's punk. That's cool, And then people react. Like that's what I love about this guy is like, you never know, he's gonna drop a song and you never know if it's gonna be love or hate first. Like they're gonna be both, but you never know. And I love that. Like how I draw the line. I think like I've been more into like putting tracks together and sending like toppers ideas, like melodic ideas. And with COVID, like I haven't been in too many rock rooms. Like in Miami here, like there's no rock bands. Like in Miami. So in Florida there is tons of great bands, but in Miami not really. So I didn't really have to draw the line. I kind of like put myself out of the equation type stuff.
I think there's something to be said for that. Sounds to me like that's the exact same thing you did when you went to LA. You put yourself in the situation you wanted to be in, and then eventually you took yourself out of a situation you didn't want to be in and moved yourself into another situation you did want to be in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, things are so fresh here in Miami. In the same week, I look at my room and like writing sessions or like, I'm like, wow, there's like, my assistant is from Colombia. And then there's like, these artists are from Atlanta. The feature is from Memphis. And, their co-writer is from New York. And then there is that other French guy. Like, I love this. Like, this is like, I feel like this is really what I'm looking for. Is really like, sharing cultures. There's something you can't copy. Like, because I learned this. When I got to LA, I understood quickly I was that French dude, It was like, oh yeah, cool, you're French, so you're good with synths, Daft Punk, I was like, well, like for the story, like Ronnie, I produced his rap mixtape. He didn't know I was writing rock music. He didn't even know I had a metal band back in the days. I had his entire rap mixtape like a few years ago. And then one day he shows up in the studio, I have a guitar, he's like, you write rock, dude? I'm like, yeah, check out this. It's like, oh my God. But like for him, it was just like, yeah, this guy is French. Like, he does synths, it's like.
But you do synths.
I love synths. Of course.
So, I mean, they're kind of right.
Yeah, of course. Culturally, yeah, that was my point. It's like, there are things you can be a sponge, but you always need, people that actually been, staying in that culture to bring something to the table that is really original. And right now, I feel like Miami has this. That's what I love about it. Like, I feel like LA and also LA is way more clique, oriented. Like, it's like little groups of people that only, and Miami has that vibe. And this is not just because of the pandemic, it's kind of like New York. It's like, oh, you know that guy? I know that guy too, let's work. And it actually happens. And I love this about Miami. I'm not here just to promote Miami, but
it sounds like you love it there.
Yeah. I love the sun, man.
A lot of people who are doing hip hop, pop, and these newer crossover genres, a lot of them are metal guys who decided to cross over at some point, or who used to do metal. What do you think it is about metal producers that they do so well in these other genres?
I think it's because metal technically is organized mass, like organized noise.
It's fucking chaos.
It's like, so you go from like spending like 10 years of your life trying to find room for that snare to pop and that extra guitar, like that is already on the wall of guitars, you know what I mean? Like, and all of a sudden there is like the opportunity of being like, wait a minute, there's like 4 instruments going, no distortion. Yeah, this is cool. And, like I feel that's why, like all my friends that did rock or metal, they're really good at mixing anything else. Metal is so hard, dude. Like, it's like the hardest music to write. You actually need to be really good. It's really hard to mix. It's so hard to sell. Like, so it's like once you go through this and you make a little money doing that, and you're like, damn, like I could do it that way. And you look at another genre, you're like, wait a minute, like, let's go, It's always a question of rhythm. Like, most metal is like mid-tempo, and when you start getting like, right now I do a lot of drill, like like 135 to 150 type tempo. Like when I work with Like I've been working with that guy, Popeye Caution, like he's a MC from Jamaica. I mean, dude, this guy, the way he approaches the song is the same way I would approach the song with my guitar and be like, okay, cool. Like I'll write a breakdown, you know, like he is really trying to get like every word to hit as hard as a hit, like in a guitar breakdown. And we really unify on this, you know, like, because even if it's not my culture and I've never been to Jamaica, like it's just like the rhythm approach, rhythmical, it's really close. So I have the same fun, you know, but with a total different sound design. So that's why I started moving to other genres. But I also love like real instruments. Like I've been working with that kid Luke Holland a lot on all his solo stuff.
He's great. He's so great.
To me, is like the perfect compromise. Like not compromise, but like the how do you say, like the bridge. He comes from metal, and all the new drops he has. Like it's like right now we have a collab with a rapper from Memphis. We just did a collab with Rio Kragen. There's a singer for Flume that comes from like the electronic, you know, world. But we're trying to like bring like real drum sound to this type of genre, and you know, real drums like limits you to do certain things, and so you find yourself doing something pretty unique because you can't have real drum sound exactly like and have the same energy as a trap song, you know. Like if you want to keep your kick to be real, like your 808, you're gonna have to have some type of compromise on the attack of your 808. So that's what I've been up to like lately. Like Luke is been part of like the direction I'm going to. Like I know we agree on a lot of things regarding like where metal was and like where we can go with our metal culture, you know.
It's great to be doing that with such a phenomenal musician.
Oh, it's crazy. Little genius.
Yeah, because it's not just some dude who decided to go to another genre because he can't play metal.
Yeah. Lucas to me is like I wish every metal musician was like him, you know. Like he can do the World Alive career and then go to, you know, do a bunch of songs with Jason Richardson, and in between he does a tour with Rufus Del Sol, and he does a cover of Pop Smoke. Like this is dope, you know. Like this is like, to me it's like if every millennial could be as open-minded as him, I think we would have some crazy, I'm talking about millennial musicians, we would have some unbelievable music coming up.
I completely agree, but I guess that's what makes someone like him special. Is it's rare.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
That rapper was saying that exactly in that song we just did. Like he was like, this vibe is rare, this shit is real. This shit is live, I swear. You know?
Yeah, I think real great talents, you know, they're like 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million. It's I don't think it's possible for everybody to be like that.
Yeah, I'm extremely grateful to do all this stuff with Luke. I mean, you know, I do think this guy is gonna have like a Travis Barker type career. He's that close to get there, and way younger than him. To me, it's like I see him like Travis Barker 2.0, totally different upcoming. But I think he could have like, you know, share that love for drums. And to me, like drums, it's real instrument. It's amazing, you know, like the way I see it, like cool. We're trying to do great songs, but at the same time, I'm like, all these kids that are gonna hear these rap songs, trap songs, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's cool to play a real instrument, and this is how we can get more people to come back and do some good shit rock-wise, you know?
I have a theory that, or just a belief that real instruments are never going to go out. And I think that it's because no matter what, even though there are tools to make life easier, you know, for non-drummers, you know, you can program drums. There's much more technology to assist. But on the other hand, the enjoyment that people get out of actually playing instruments,
oh man,
it hasn't gone anywhere. And if you look at the evidence, like for instance, Fender just had their biggest year ever. I think they made like $900 million last year or something.
Not bad.
Yeah, I think it's all right. People are buying guitars. People are buying instruments. Like that's.
I mean, dude, like all these kids coming here, renting the studio in Miami, they start like their process is interesting, especially like all the upcoming producers from Jamaica or like, you know, all the islands. Like they go on Splice, they find loops they like, they throw that in their session, They see if like their singer or rapper like feels it, and then there is a real guitar or is a real bass player in the room, and they jam to it, and that sample disappears. It's just like, to me, that's the perfect way to use this kind of tool. It's like, like something that you would not find in your brain that quick, that gives you that starting idea, and then you jam to it, and then it's gone. And but yeah, it's amazing to see like all these kids like playing like in Latin music, like Danny Ocean, like his guitarist producer is unbelievable player. I had the chance to have him here. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Real instruments are never going to go away. It's just finding ways to incorporate them in upcoming movements and genres type stuff.
Exactly. What I think is the problem, well, I don't think it's a problem. I am on your side of the fence about this. I don't think it's going anywhere. But I think the people who think that real instruments are on their way out, their problem is they're thinking of the world in a static sort of way. They think about it in the way that it was, and they want it to be the way that it was, and that is just not going to happen.
Yeah, I hear so many producers saying like, "Oh, dude, like, why would you track real drums? Like, you can program that shit." And I'm like, no. Have you ever worked with a good drummer? It's like, you'll never replace this. You'll never replace that energy. You'll never replace the air it creates in your mix when you use like real drums. I'm biting my tongue because 15 years ago, I would be like, damn, like this is awesome. I don't have to go rent a studio for my band to record drums, like on the coast side of things, like especially in Europe, like you don't have a lot of project studios. So you end up in studios like where you have to spend $2,000 a day just for the rental. And this is your starting band. And, you don't have that money. You're broke in college or whatever. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's cool to be able to program it and put your demos like this. But man, yeah, it's like real drums, like it's life. And a lot of people around me, they're always like, damn, dude, like why do you spend so much time on this project with Luke? He's just a drummer. And I'm like, this is exactly the point. He's a drummer. This is such a different angle to actually read songs as an artist. It's like, it's defending the world from, like just using programmed drums or like all kinds of tools that are gonna kind of like trying to replace the human brain and the human feel. So of course I use a lot of synths, but I love real instruments, and that's why I work with Luke.
I think the best of both worlds is like what you were just saying with Splice, using those tools to assist the creation of art, whatever it takes, not to replace the physical contributions of people, but to enhance them.
And dude, like Splice also on the other end, like on the producer side, like selling packs on Splice can get your music out. Like there was one sample, I forgot the name, I don't remember what song, but like some girl that Premise Horizon used on one of their tracks, like she ended up getting some clout out of it and a recording deal out of this too. It's also a good way to show that you can also write some good music. I mean, to me, it's all really positive. I do think that, like we're going in the right direction. We just don't know exactly what direction we're going right now.
Well, you never know what direction things are going, because none of us are psychic. But I just look at the fact that music is doing better than ever. I mean, touring in the pandemic aside, music is doing better than it's done in ages. It recovered from that huge dip in the industry. Instrument sales are through the roof. Music education, like URM or whatever, we're doing great. Like people want to know how to make music. People are getting more and more creative. Genres are kind of disappearing. I mean, this is all really, really good stuff. And I think that the producers of tomorrow are going to need to have skills beyond just mastering one genre, with the exception of some guy wants to be the best death metal producer in the world and manages to become the best death metal producer in the world, and all of the best death metal bands go to that person, cool. But there's only one of those people, right? Or two or three or four or five, maybe, right? There's not room for 1,000 of them. There's room for 5, 10 if I'm being super generous. I think that the future path for successful producers as an industry is to be able to handle multiple genres and know how to blend them. That's the future, in my opinion.
And I mean, like technically, things are getting so easy. It's like, I remember 15 years ago, 20 years ago, for me, it was like getting a okay mix was complicated. And I needed,
Yes,
I needed a lot of skills. And I remember listening back and forth, like why is my stereo not like this, my correlation, like like all this kind of stuff. And now you have tools that help you so quick with Isotope, like all these plugins companies. Like you don't even have to know what you're doing. If someone tells you like, yeah, make sure like this thing stays at 1 and you're good, you know what I mean. Like it's like I do think that like the creative side of producers is that's why I ended up being like a songwriter composer type producer, because it's more exciting for me to get involved in the track and write the track than actually getting it to sound great. To me, like the creative side won't be replaced. Like back in the days, I worked for a company called Mad Waves and then New Wave Labs in UK. We were doing generative music. So we were trying to like replace, like, to get music to be done by itself.
Like computer generated music?
Yes. And so like we did like, I don't know if you remember those Sony Ericssons that had like, you could create your own ringtone on it. That's
Yes.
how we started, to the point where we actually like, sold the technology. And with Google, like, that's how I ended up working for Google. My love for California started from there. But it sucked, man. The music sucked. Like, it's like, even with so many talents in the room trying to put together these algorithms, like I was missing something. It was missing like imperfection, and
emotion.
And emotion,
Yeah.
yeah. And I do think that like that's the part I really love, is like working on the emotional side of a track, and the technical side. It's whatever to me, like there are so many records that I love that don't sound good.
Well, the technical side, though, is important, but the problem is when people prioritize it over the creative and emotional side. However, there is a certain personality type who are more like human computers, and they are just really good at technical kind of stuff, and that's what they love. And I think that there's room for those kinds of people too. They make great editors, great engineers.
I mean, dude, I need them for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we need those people, and the ones that I know who are like that, they love it. Which is, it's like, I remember from the touring days, there were guitar techs, and the guitar techs that I worked with loved being guitar techs, and they loved doing guitar luthier stuff when they were home. Like, they love it. It was their passion. Man, I never want to even think about building a fucking guitar or anything like that. Like, I don't understand why someone would want to do that instead of be the player. But hey, that's fine. Like, I'm really, really glad that there are people like that. And that's how I feel about the technically minded engineers. Like, they are necessary. But what I do agree with you on completely is that the barrier between having an idea and then having it sound good coming out of your speakers is far reduced. Far, far reduced.
Yeah.
Just think about where amp sims are now. 10 years ago, you could dial an amp sim and get a good tone, but it was hard as fuck. It took a ton of work. Nowadays, you just plug into some of them and they sound great. And the technology has come so far that, like I said, the time from having an idea until the idea coming through your speaker sounding good has been far reduced.
Definitely. And I'm not really technical with guitars. Like, I love my XFX because in 5 seconds I can be like, "Yo, homie, like, I know you have that Diesel VH4. Can you send me your sim and I'll match it real quick." Like, this is pretty amazing for that. Definitely.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying this podcast, then you should know that it's brought to you by URM Academy. URM Academy's mission is to create the next generation of audio professionals by giving them the inspiration and information to hone their craft and build a career doing what they love. You've probably heard me talk about Nail the Mix before, and if you're a member, you already know how amazing it is. The beginning of the month, Nail the Mix members get the raw multi-tracks to a new song by artists like Lamb of God, Angels and Airwaves, Knock Loose, Opeth, Meshuggah, Bring Me the Horizon, Gojira, Asking Alexandria, Machine Head, and Papa Roach, among many, many others. Over 60 at this point. Then at the end of the month, the producer who mixed it comes on and does a live streaming walkthrough of exactly how they mix the song on the album and takes your questions live on air. And these are guys like TLA, Will Putney, Jens Bogren, Dan Lancaster, Tui Madsen, Andrew Wade, and many, many more. You'll also get access to MixLab, which is our collection of dozens of bite-sized mixing tutorials that cover all the basics, as well as Portfolio Builder, which is a library of pro-quality multi-tracks cleared for use in your portfolio, so your career will never again be held back by the quality of your source material. And for those of you who really want to step up their game, we have another membership tier called URM Enhanced, which includes everything I already told you about and access to our massive library of fast tracks, which are deep, super detailed courses on intermediate and advanced topics like gain staging, mastering, low end, and so forth. It's over 500 hours of content, and man, let me tell you, this stuff is just insanely detailed. Enhanced members also get access to one-on-ones, which are basically office hour sessions with us, and Mix Rescue, which is where we open up one of your mixes and fix it up and talk you through exactly what we're doing at every step. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, if you're ready to level up your mixing skills in your audio career, head over to urm.academy to find out more.
Man, I want to talk a little bit more about the generative music stuff you did, if you don't mind, because I've never actually met anyone who worked in that world before.
So what do you want to know?
I don't think that until machines figure out how to feel emotions and have ideas of their own and feel those ideas, that a machine will ever be able to replace human inspiration. I think that it could get super complicated and mimic it and mimic all the technical aspects of music. Like, you know, if it keeps going, the technology could definitely get it to where, you know, it can mimic chord progressions and melodies, but it will never be able to have that extra spark, that mood that a human has.
Yeah, that was our problem. You know, you're like, all right, cool, like reggae music, most of it is minor, or, you know, like we would start with like writing algorithms like this. And when we would do like sad music, you always want to bring some type of hope in it. And for that, it's like finding the right spot to like get your melody to modulate a little bit. Like it's really like how you feel about it that makes you write it. And the computer, for sure, we could not put that in algorithms. That was such a big issue. The really positive thing about it, though, is that at an early age, I was able to get paid to actually study other music genres. And I think that's why I always I was so, I love metal. That was my genre in my heart, you know. But I was like, damn, like it's so interesting. Like, you know, like I would love to be able to write reggae or dub or garage UK or, you know, UK garage, sorry. And that's where my love started, you know, for like bending genres and doing crossover stuff. And the technology app, and I'll send you, I don't know, maybe you saw it, like before I joined that company, they had put together some type of Game Boy. It looked like a Game Boy. It was called the Mad Player.
Not familiar.
So it was pretty interesting. Like, and back in these days, like I was like 16, 17, was end of the 90s. The limitation, the memory limitation, the RAM was crazy. So writing a piano and getting him to be in such a small, you know, device without a smart, you know, like a SD card or stuff like this, that was pretty insane. And the way it was working is like, you know, you could like, it looked like a freeway, and you had like your 4 tracks, and you had drums, riff, bass, and lead. And then you would go in each lane, and you could change that, and randomly would give you something new. And, you know, and stay in the key or stay, you know, in the style you picked. Then you could like, what was cool is that you could also export the MIDI of this. So then you could like from there make actual music out of it, original music out of it. But yeah, I mean, drums, super easy to program and make it feel real. Actually, like taste right, Bass was kind of okay too, and as soon as we were getting in the melody territory, it would become like, like, it would be pretty, like a 4 a.m. session. You're too turned up to understand that what you're doing is terrible. Yeah, that's where we were. Yeah, what was also really interesting for me is that I was art director for it. So, like I was the guy that would tell the musician what was cool or not, making sure the technical team was being respected.
What does that mean, being respected?
Like there would be technical limitations regarding the size of a piano, the size of a bass, the size of, like the actual instrument. So I would make sure that the musicians that were, putting together ideas for the programmation of algorithm would understand that they could not do a legato on the bass, or they could not do staccato or certain strings, like things like this. And that's kind of like how my love for synth started, because I was like, damn man, like you can really really go deep in like creating something that's totally unique, you know what I mean? Like it's like there's not that, I don't want to sound too French about this, but like, like a Telecaster is always going to sound like a Telecaster.
Yes.
Like, of course, like another Telecaster is going to be different than yours, but, and with synths, I was like, damn, like the possibilities are infinite, That's the kind of stuff I would do. Or I would make sure that, the writing would be simple enough for the algorithms to actually do something tasty. It's really hard for me. Like, I know it sounds like I'm I'm telling you the earth is flat, but trying to prove that the earth is flat right now.
It's not flat?
No, it's not, dude.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, generative music was a saying for sure. That's how I ended up in California a lot, because I ended up doing like all the sound design for the Google Phone 1. Like doing all this, I don't know if you remember, like Google, when they came up with the first Google phone,
Yep.
They were the first company to have like ringtones that were more than 30 seconds. Or like more than 25 seconds. I don't remember exactly the technical aspect of it, but I remember like writing long ringtones, and also like we designed all the synths for the phone, because like the memory back in the days was not as easy as now. Like like there was not as much memory in the phone. So yeah, that's it's interesting to see that actually generative music got me to do music content that actually got me in the place I wanted to be for my rock stuff, that was California. Like that's pretty much how I ended up there.
Well, that just goes to show that you never know what's going to lead to what, and you should do the best job possible with the opportunities in front of you. I know one of the biggest mistakes that I see URM students make is not taking their opportunities seriously, because it's not what they eventually want to be doing.
Yeah.
My experience, at least with any opportunities that I've had, is that you don't know when they're going to show up. You don't know who they're going to come from, and you don't know how what you're doing now is going to lead to what you're doing 5 years from now. So take it seriously, always, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, like when I moved to LA, I wanted to be what we call the producer, like someone like Mud Rock, like record guitars, record a band, mix it, engineer. Like that was kind of like the dream, And then my opportunity was like, hey, dude, you write good songs, And I ended up like pushing this, I didn't fight it. I was not like, oh, that's not what I want to do. I went with it, and I actually made a career out of it, in America, and yeah, like I see a lot of like when you do a electronic song, like EDM music, you have a lot of opportunities that come up with one song. You can have like remixes. It depends of the scene you go in, and a lot of artists, they get turned down because they are like, oh damn, this is not exactly what I wanted, so I'm not gonna go with it. And it's like, yeah, but like, is it something that can bring you to a little closer to your goal? And jump into it. It's fine, because it's either this or you have nothing,
How do you even know that goal that you have now is going to be your goal in a few years?
Dude, my only goal is this. I want to wake up every day, get in the studio, have fun with people, write cool music. And this makes me happy, and be able to, provide for my family. And this goal every day, I think I achieve it. Then my dreams, like these are pretty defined, but they are, I know they change, like it's like when you wake up in the morning, the dream you had, like you probably have a not 100% like accuracy on what was really your dream in the first place when you were sleeping, So I'm really cool with like going with the flow. I think it's key with this industry, you have to be able to adapt very, very quick, whatever music you do. And I think like this is how I've been able to survive pretty well in it. But that's why I tell kids a lot too, like that come to the studio. I totally agree with you. They need to be open to new opportunities.
Yeah, understanding that you never know where it's going to lead. I mean, it's a very big jump to think of making ringtones to doing what you ended up doing. It's quite a jump.
Yeah, it was a jump. I mean, the thing is that I was already in rock bands and, like metal bands in Europe. Dude, I was making no money. I was not making enough. And I was just like, damn, I just want to make sure that every day I can, make a living doing music, because whatever music it is, it's better than any other job. That was where I was. And slowly it helped me get to where I wanted. And now I do exactly what I want every day, and new opportunities come up. But yeah, you gotta take the opportunity when it shows up, and not be scared. And what's the worst that can happen? Like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's for sure. I go with that. I'm not afraid to fail either. We have a pretty interesting song dropping with Luke next Friday. We shall see. We shall see. People might not like it. It's okay. People might be stoked about it. I don't know, but I just know that like trying new things and taking a risk and trying to be unique is key to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that trying to please the audience is a bad idea, because it's impossible to please everybody. It's just impossible. And it's impossible to predict how people are going to react. So if you're trying to please them, you're already losing.
I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to please the audience and it doesn't work.
I know.
Like this is like, and most music doesn't work out, man. Like this is what I tell people. It's like, I make 100 songs a year. There's 10 that like, or 15 that ends up like making some numbers. And out of these 15, there is one that like, actually smash, And if you do it for like that one song, you're going to be really sad, or your 10 songs, whatever is your level of, production, it's like, so I make sure that every day I do something that makes me happy, because, and make the artist happy, or, because like you never know where it's going to go. So yeah, if you try to please everyone and it doesn't work out, like this is the worst feeling. I've made that mistake. Did you do that at some point?
I never like changed the sound of my own music to try to be more popular or anything. I mean, I wouldn't have chosen extreme metal if that was my, I definitely wanted my band to get as big as we could get within what we did, but we never took that jump, and maybe to our own detriment, who knows. But the reason I'm saying it is because I've seen, a lot of artists that I've either produced or assisted on productions with, and, I've been around a lot of artists who do think that way and who have had those thoughts, and I've seen what happens when they fuck it up.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I have a perfect example for you. Look, like a dude like Ronnie Radke, right? Like he's extremely controversial, and this guy loves fashion, new trends. Like he really loves this. So it's part of him. Like, like being a hype beast of whatever is going on in music has been his thing. So if you love it, it's okay to try to be part of like whatever is popular.
Absolutely, if that's who you are.
It's the same. Yeah, if this is who you are, it's like with you, like you are like, damn, man, like I want my band to be the most extreme metal band of all times. Like this is the same way, What sucks is when you try to be someone else. This is where everything falls apart.
I was having this conversation with Devin Townsend on the podcast about a year ago. We were talking about Chad Kroeger at Nickelback, actually, and he knows him. What we were saying was that people like that, the Chad Kroegers of the world, that is who they are. That they are making the music that is them. That's why it's so successful. Like it or not, that's what their natural output is. And when you try to do stuff like that and it's not your natural output, the audience can tell. They can just tell. They're like drug dogs or something. They can just smell it.
Yeah, that's why there are so many like rock acts that have been tanking, heavy rock acts that, they were not doing that for the right reason. It goes back to what I was telling you in the first, earlier in the podcast, like when I was in a metal band, I was really angry. I was mad at the world. I was broke. Like there was all these reasons for me to be on stage screaming in a mic, and my band didn't do a lot. Like we got a small deal in Germany and all this, but like every time I think about it, I'm like, damn man, like that was real. And one day I started making money with music. I started being a happier man, and I was like, damn, like I have no reasons to sing these lyrics anymore. And I had to go with where my life was going because I felt I was not authentic anymore. And I think that's the key, is that authenticity. It's like if you're really the mirror of your life. I don't know how to say that in English properly, but I know you know where I'm going.
Yes.
Like that authenticity is key for sure.
So just out of curiosity, I'm sorry to keep going back to this. I'm just really curious. When making music for a giant corporation or for a game or anything like that, that's not like a band, not an artist. It's a product. It's a product, and you have to work with corporate people who have
items.
Yeah,
it's itemized.
How different is that to you? Like, how is the process different than when you work with like a Ronnie Radke or something?
Well, I have to be honest with you. It's way easier. It's way easier because you get a list of exactly what needs to be done. So it's like on the production side, like you can't really fuck up, It was way easier. The negative side is there is no real sense of accomplishment of doing something new or edgy or unique, So it's also a little boring because it feels so easy when you get in a room with a band or with a writer or singer. You don't really know, or there is like that good anxiety of like not knowing where the day is going to bring you. So that's basically and you might not do anything that day. Like that song you try to put together might never work, and it can be like 4-5 days like this of like blank and being like, damn, like this is not what we want. This is not good. This is like not right. While doing the same shit again, like all this type of stuff. Working for big corporations like that, like the sense of satisfaction is quick, because you're like, all right, cool. Like I've been asked to do this, 2 hours after it's done. When you write for an artist, it can be great. In 30 minutes, you can have something amazing done, but you can also spend 5 days with that feeling of like, damn, man, like we suck. Like we don't have anything right now. So that's like, to me, that's the two first things that come to my mind that are polar opposite from these two worlds, for sure.
It sounds like there's probably certain personality types who would love that.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a certain type of person who would love just to get a list of what has to be done and just do it, the end.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm that guy when I receive like, those mix notes. I'm like, fuck. Like, I hate this. Like, what I love is like, the raw creativity of music. And that's why I didn't push it, because as you can imagine, like, like the first Google phone, it went pretty well. And like the company was really happy with our work. And I had the opportunity to actually join Google and get like this kind of type of like career where you know exactly how much money you're gonna make every month, But that was not exciting for me. That was not, I remember being there talking to one of the main guys there. They were showing me around, me like, you could have this and you could do this and you could do that. And I was like, man, I don't think you understand what it is to be in a shitty studio with a few people, some guitars, and like creating something that did not exist, and like have that feeling in the room of like, damn man, like we're gonna conquer the world with this track. Yeah, that was not for me. It's too cold for me. I love mistakes and imperfections, and like where the creative direction in the room is just the room itself, and for this kind of company, exactly where it's gonna go. Everything is so calculated. There is so much at stake.
Well, I mean, in the small studio, you're thinking about taking over the world with this track, but at Google, they already took over the world. So
that's why I realized that I was like, damn, like financial side of things is not my main concern, because the money there was extremely different as like the type of money you can make like engineering or producing rock tracks. Even if you can be extremely successful and make good money, like it's another world. But it's not that exciting when I think it's the metal spirit or the punk spirit, spirit. It's like, I don't want to be part of the people that impose to the other people the way they should sing or the shit they should listen to. I'm against this. Why am I here? So that was an identity crisis for me. And back at that time, like I can tell you that my family was not understanding what was going on. They were like, "What? Like you have this type of opportunity and you're not going with that." And I was like, "No, I want to make rock music, dude."
The thing is that on the outside, someone may not understand that. But I think that if you really know yourself, which I think is really, really important in this industry, is know yourself. And you know that a situation like that is going to rot your soul, basically, and you're going to hate your job. I don't think that there's an amount of money that makes that worth it.
Oh, exactly. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is exciting too, to work for this kind. Like, what I learned working with them, for them, helped me structure the way I, take care of projects. Like, like when I have to do a beat pack now, a sound pack, like I learned from these days, like I'm way more efficient. Like there's a lot of good things to get. But to me, like for any musician or aspiring producer, like it's like, cool, do it for a couple of years, it's gonna help you. But if you don't feel like you need someone every day to tell you what you need to do, don't stay there.
So just out of curiosity, because you had that experience in such a serious environment, does it ever frustrate you how unprofessional and lax the music industry is?
No, the only thing with the music industry that's really hard for me is like song splits. To be, fully honest with you, it's like you write songs with people and then there's that business discussion after. And it's really hard for me like to be connected emotionally to a track and then just see it as just a piece of of business. That's where unprofessional people can get your day to go really wrong.
Can we talk a little bit about negotiating splits? This is something that actually a lot of our listeners are curious about. You just said it's something that you discuss after the fact.
I mean, it depends. Like certain sessions, like, like there is an A&R being like, hey, we're doing like this type of writing, this kind of placement. This is what people would get in the room, and cool, easy. And then sometimes you just like, like this type of situation, you're just recording a song for a band and you're kind of like doing like some post-production type stuff. And then you end up giving that one idea. You can't help it. You're like, hey, check this out. Like, on the chorus, maybe we could go there. And then everyone loves it. And then you end up having the chorus, Especially with an upcoming band or project, it can be a little difficult to discuss afterwards. Like that was not planned. And it's like, I actually like half the song is kind of me now. This is where things get a little complicated sometimes, especially with upcoming projects. I have a manager, I have entertainment lawyer. They keep things like together for me, but like when you work with this kind of upcoming artists, like they are not there yet, and so this is a little tricky sometimes, for sure. So what I try to do is just like like I'm lucky enough, like my publisher, I signed with Lionel Conway and Brett Gurvitz like a few years back. The assistant of Conway became my manager. So this guy took care of song splits for years before managing artists, So it's pretty simple. Like I really try after every session to write down exactly what I've done. So then he has this kind of information, and then we present it to the artist being like, hey, this is, like this percentage of the song has been written by Charlie, this percentage of the song has been, and try to get them to really understand where it comes from instead of just throwing a number and hurting people's ego, I always try to be as transparent as possible with the artists I work with. Back in the days, I would make the mistake of just waiting for a few days to open the conversation. And now I know that, like, once it's done in the studio, I get this conversation on directly, like, hey guys, that's like, I think it's the experience, but now it's more like, okay, I wrote that chorus, so are we thinking about publishing? Like, how do you see this? And like face to face in the energy of the song and the session, it's a little easier. My advice, like for younger musicians, is to really like talk about it as soon as possible, and be okay with like not knowing what's going on and asking for a lot of advice around you with like people that are already doing it type stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much how I approach it. Like I try to be really transparent, and I'm okay also. Like sometimes I feel like the idea came from me and maybe it wasn't, you know. So like I also question myself. I make sure that I'm not like looking like that guy that is trying to like steal from the intellectual property from someone else, you know. That's a really bad feeling when people do that to you. So I don't want to be that guy.
You know, I think that a lot of people coming up in the industry have a hard time with things like knowing how to charge, or they're afraid of, I don't want to say confrontation, but yeah, they're afraid of confrontation and afraid of being assertive about things. And so I think that that's why they will wait to talk about it until it's way too late. I've known of people waiting a lot more than a few days. Like they'll wait a month or two until and then everyone forgot what even happened. Bad idea.
Yeah, very bad idea. And, you know, like the worst is when the song is actually dropping and you never had the talk. You know? And then you receive that one email from the label being like, hey, did you write something on this? You know, and so if you're lucky,
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, you actually got that email.
I think it's okay. You know, like I think like I've never really had an issue being like, hey, this is what I think I deserve. Do you want to discuss it? And I think maybe that comes also from the fact that I have a corporate experience with people like Google or Ubisoft, or, you know, like I did all this music content. Like that company I was working for, we did a bunch of music content for a lot of corporations. I got trained thanks to this, but it's true. Like when you're a true artist, like it's really, really far from like, is it okay to do this? Like it feels like I'm talking about money, but it's like, it's just a piece of art. Like, so yeah, it's pretty, it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky. What's your approach on this?
Okay. So, you know, in URM, it's very, very simple, right? We have a price for the service and our products, the end. But when I was producing, it was hard because I didn't want to feel like I was ripping people off. Like I had some insecurities about charging too much. And then eventually, once I started working with label bands, then we're just dealing with budgets. And so I didn't feel like I had the clout to be like, that's not enough. So in reality, for me, there wasn't a ton of that, but I had to learn how to get comfortable just asking for money. And the way that I got comfortable with it is just by doing it, which is how I feel about everything. Like I talked about this on a podcast a few years ago, that basically my philosophy towards things you're afraid of in life is fuck it, just do it. You know, whether it's, you know, talking to the girl or going for the record deal or moving to LA, if that's what you want to do, or whatever, you know, me quitting production to start URM, these types of things that are important but are scary, fuck it, just do it. So first of all, I think the anticipation is worse than the actual act with most things. So the amount of time that you're going to spend scared and stressed out about doing something is going to be worse than actually doing it. In most cases. Yeah, you worry about asking for money and worry about how are they going to react and how's this going to go and is it too much, too little? Just fucking say it. And then they'll respond. And then you're going to know how they're going to react because they reacted. And you can go from there.
Accordingly, yeah. I mean, dude, my first, like, especially when I moved to LA and I started, like, you know, recording, producing people there, like, I was putting myself, like, as you said earlier, like, I didn't really know who I was, especially in a different country. Like everything was so different. I remember like, you know, calling my friends and being like, dude, like, you know, I just spent 3 days on this song. I need to ask this guy, but like, you know, he's pretty big. Like how, you know, like, you know, if I lose the gig, like, you know, like there's, you know, like you end up in like this crazy anxiety.
Yeah, rabbit hole.
And actually the only thing I had to do was just like, all right, cool. I call that guy. Like, hey, so what's up with that? Oh, okay, cool. Oh, you want this? Oh, I want that. Okay, compromise done. It's behind us. It's all good. And yeah, it's like, I feel like a lot of careers don't take off because of that fear of, you know, like actually being professional about it.
And you know what's funny is people are expecting you to ask for something, right? And if they're not, those aren't the type of people you want to be working with anyways. But anyone who hires you to work on a track, if they're an actual artist who's going for an actual career.
Yeah, there's no issues. I had no issues with any professional artist I worked with. I had zero issue. Of course, there would be an issue with a split here and there. Yeah, you know, there are discussions, but like to get paid, it's normal. It's like they understand. Like they get on stage, they get paid. So why would the producer not get paid, or the engineer? You know. But yeah, like it's that's why I was telling you, like it's hard when it's with an upcoming artist, really upcoming, like meaning like no record deals yet, and like did like 15 shows and pay to play type of shows, you know. Discussions are harder with this kind of artists for sure. And I also know that like if I don't take the risk to work with this type of artist, I'm gonna miss out on like new energies and new uniqueness, you know. So it's finding the balance, what fight to pick and what fight not to pick, you know.
Well, so for instance, a fight that I decided not to pick on the advice of my then manager, when producing and mixing small metal records, fuck getting points, because who cares? So this is like, am I going to really sweat them for 3 points on an album that's a $10,000 budget that's going to barely recoup for 3 points that I'll never see anyways? Why even go there? Why sweat them for it? Why get adversarial about something that just doesn't matter? I decided that's not a fight that's worth fighting. I mean, you know, if this was a different universe and I was producing Slipknot, then that's a different story.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I never really asked for points. I've always been like into like, yeah, pay me for my time and make sure that if I write the song, like, you know, it's more of the principle of being respected for the intellectual property you're bringing to the table. You know, it's like at the end of the day, especially when you are like, I would say ghostwriter, it's like this is all you have at the end of the day. It's your credit and this little cut of publishing you're getting. So it's important, I think, that like you fight for this if you're starting to be a songwriter. Like it's really important because you can lose a little bit of your soul, like not, you know, fighting. It's good to stand up for yourself. It's really good too, you know. But for the points as a producer, I totally agree with you. Any metal record, like I would be like, cool, yeah, that's fine. You know, like 5 points of what? Like you guys need to do like, you know, I don't know how many sales back in the days, or like, you know, or now it's like to recoup like a $20,000 budget, you need to do at least 5 million plays. And then, you know, whoever owns the masters, like it takes forever. It's like, yeah, no, it's different. It's different.
Yeah, it's just not a battle that's worth fighting. But you just brought up something interesting with ghostwriting. So with ghostwriting, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know much about it. Like, you're not actually credited, right? That's the definition of ghostwriting.
Yeah.
That said, how do you develop a reputation then for the great work that you've done?
Within the A&Rs and within the artist like group, you know, creative group you're part of.
So the word of mouth.
Yeah. I have a bunch of kids coming to the studio and they're like, oh, you don't have that many followers, you know, like, and, but you have all these plays for these songs. And it's just like, you know, like to talk about the word of mouth, not just the ghostwriting, like, it's key. Like the relationship you build and like the respect you get from artists, they're gonna, you know, spread the love. So yeah, to go back to ghostwriting, yeah, you're not credited on the Spotify list, but you still have your cut somewhere. You know, you still have people can still find stuff on BMI and ASCAP and things like this. It's more about like you kind of sign this kind of paper that says that you can't really talk about the song as your song. But luckily, I didn't have to do that a lot. Not in the rock world. Like in the rock world, like people are cool for that. But yeah, in the pop world, things can be really different.
I guess if you do great work, the people who matter find out.
Exactly. So, you know, it's interesting. Like, since I've been in Miami, I worked with a lot of producers that I thought were producers, and actually they are like more of executive producers. They get like, you know, writing credits or they get production credits for just putting people in the room together, like getting the right beat maker.
Rick Rubin style.
Exactly. But they market themselves as actual music producers. So it's at the beginning, like when I showed up here, I was like, oh, this is not too much of a LA thing. Like in LA, they say they are executive producers. Here it's like, oh, you're a music producer. I'm like, yeah, show me how. Oh, you don't write music? Wait, like DJ Khaled type stuff. It's interesting, like the titles. Like for a while, I was really looking into like how do people perceive me, who am I in this industry, and I started not giving a fuck, and everything went great.
Do you think that part of that is because coming from the corporate world, titles do matter?
Yeah, because in corporate world, that's all you have, and I have people in my family in corporate America, and it's like if they lose their job, it's like they lose themselves. In our world, freelance and more like, independent, like you lose one gig, you'll find another one, and you'll still do what you do every day. Yeah, I do think maybe that was the reason why I was trying to figure out how to be perceived.
What do you consider yourself now? Do you consider yourself a songwriter that produces or a producer that songwrites?
Oh, right now I'm like definitely a beat maker, man. Like for the past 6 months, this is what I've been doing. I've been writing tons of beats and tracks, and I would consider myself right now as a vocal producer. This is what I do mostly. It's like I produce vocals. I think I got pretty good at like making top lines way more efficient, and really worked on my craft on like how to technically get vocals to sound like a certain way. And this is pretty much my gig right now is mainly this, like beside, like I have a studio in LA, I have a studio in Miami, but like what I do is I produce vocals. Like I think I plugged in a guitar like 3 times, like personally in the past 3 months, So yeah, vocal producer. I don't know if it's a thing. Is it a thing?
Obviously in rock, that's not like a title, but I know people in other genres that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most important thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like, I think that's why I spend so much time working with Ronnie, because, like, he's an unbelievable singer, extremely creative, and, like, it's so fun. Like, it really made me fall in love with, like, producing vocals. I think that, like, working on, like, dancehall or trap, traditional, trap, all I have to do is produce vocals, and this is one of the favorite things I like to do. So the mix part, I don't really like mixing, especially if I put the track together and then I produce the vocals, man, like I suck. It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, oh my God, if I touch this, like it's going to change the entire vibe. I don't know, Like, so I love to get my stuff mixed by someone else. But yeah, producing vocals is so much fun.
I want to talk about the BMW Kenny record real quick. 12-song album. It's less than 10 minutes in runtime. Since we're talking about, music of the future a lot, do you see that as something that's the direction things are headed, like almost like grindcore length?
I mean, dude, like when that guy showed up at the studio, I was like, what the heck?
I mean, that's like a grind album.
Yeah, it's like... What he's trying to do is, like his entire vision is I write a cool hook and then it's on TikTok and all the revenues come to me and I don't need anything else than just TikTok to get my stuff out. And to me, it's cool, but it's cool to a certain extent. It's like you're limiting yourself. Like to me, it's like corporate shit,
It's almost like a jingle.
Yeah, it's like a jingle. And the worst part about it is like when I heard that record, I was like, damn, like everything is amazing. Meaning like there could be 12 great songs out of this. Why do I just get a chorus, half a verse, and then the beat, like my first thought was like, dude, like what about you do a long version of this and then you do a TikTok version, and everyone is happy. And but I don't know, man. Like it's the attention span of kids now. Like I see them in the studio, like when they are, listening to tracks to try to get like inspired. They spend like 35, 40 seconds on a song. I'm not talking about rock people. I'm talking about like hip hop, pop people, like 40 seconds. And then they go to another song. And this is like how people listen to music now. And so kind of makes sense.
He's just playing into that.
Then the art part of it, I don't know. I'm not sure, but like for sure everything is catchy. It might get a lot of plays, and when people like your song and it's 40 seconds and they play it 5 times, like this is 5 times the money you would get if your song is 7 minutes. So to me, it's like maybe Spotify and all these guys should start looking into like also getting paid on like the length of the song.
Opeth would become the biggest band in the world.
Man, the Yes album, the Green album.
Yeah.
with songs being like 14 minutes. Like, yeah, you know. But what do you think? Like, I do think that should be a thing too, you know? Like, I mean, the algorithm to detect actually if like the song is not just a copy and paste 25 times would be crazy. But yeah, like I think it's the best way to actually, for that guy to make tons of streams.
I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so I could be wrong and it could have changed, but I believe that the YouTube algorithm does factor in the amount of time that you spent watching. And so, you know, if you watch a 1 hour video for the full hour, that counts way more than if you watched 3 minutes out of a 10-minute video or something.
Yeah. Yeah, for YouTube. Yeah, maybe for Spotify, I'm totally wrong, and they're already changing this, but could be a thing. It could be a thing.
Is this something that you've seen with other artists? Like, so you're saying that you're seeing a lot of younger people in pop and hip hop listening to 40 seconds of a song. Is this like, are 40-second long songs something that's becoming more normal for you?
I mean, right now, like I'm doing a lot of hip hop tracks under 150.
Wow.
Like already. Yeah. It's like chorus, verse. It's not even a 16, it's an 8. Chorus, half a verse, chorus, half beat, done. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. I mean, like, you know, guys like Lil Pump, like they did full records. Like, I don't know, like the Harvard Dropout that he dropped like a couple of years ago. Like, this record is like 29 minutes. There's like 17 songs, something like that. Like, I don't know exactly, but like it's something like this. Like, you know, it's a good way to like get streams. You know, I get it. If you're totally independent, you do something great of 1 minute and 40 seconds, and like people listen to it 3 times to be satisfied with your track. Yeah, I get it. It's a smart commercial way to make money. Like, there is not that much you can do, even in rap. Like, in 1 minute 40 seconds, like the story is short, man. The story is short, and it's 100 BPM. It's not 190. It's not death metal. You know.
Okay, so here's the thing that I'm wondering about. Okay, so you know that like payola was a big thing, right? And for people who don't know, because they're too young, that was when labels would pay radio stations to, you know, put a song into rotation. I mean, you can't generate a hit. Like, you can't control what the audience is going to like, but that's how they definitely up the chances significantly for a song.
Yeah, like they say, pay for slots.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is a way that they tried to increase the commercial potential of a track. And so how, in my opinion, you know, we're talking about adapting, right? So what I'm hearing is just that modern artists have adapted to this new landscape. If it's no longer a payola type landscape, it's now a streaming landscape. And so they have figured out how to make the best of it. And if it means 40 or a minute long songs, 40-second or a minute long, then they're adapting to that because that's what artists who want to have a career do, I think.
I mean, especially in these times, I mean, man, like, there's no shows. Like, I mean, you know, if right now what you need to do to put bread in your plate is this, and that's all you know, in your life is like to make tracks and make music, I'm not mad at them. I just hope that like when the renaissance happens and like, you know, the world opens up and we can do shows again, really hope people will be down for like a quick, you know, a 4 minute and 30 seconds type song standard. That would be cool, you know. Yeah, right now I feel like it's a way to survive for a lot of artists.
Do you get any artists who still do like traditional length or longer songs? Is that even a thing?
No, yeah, with Luke, I mean...
With Luke, yeah.
Yeah, we do at least 3 minutes, you know. The thing is that he hits so many so many elements, and it's so busy that after 3 minutes, you're kind of like, okay, I'm good. I'm just like, I just hope he's listening to this and like, I'm fucking with him, but...
I doubt he's listening.
Oh, he will. I'll send it to him and be like, yo, I'm talking shit about you. Like, you should check this out.
Luke, you better fucking listen.
I mean, with Ronnie, like, I'm about to go to LA to like, you know, write with him next week, and all his tracks, like, you know, the few last songs I work on with him, like, they're all like 3:40, 4 minutes. Hip hop wise, yeah, I mean, Ayo and Theo last week, like, the songs are 2 minutes, man. The collab with Walshy Fire, you know, from Major Lazer, the song is 1:45. So maybe it's a genre type stuff. Like, I don't see like rock metal bands like doing like the 2 minutes format yet. But I would not be surprised if it starts happening.
I mean, grindcore did that for years.
Yeah, but it's grindcore. It's always been like, I remember like, listening to like really crazy hardcore when I was 15 years old, and the songs were 1 minute and 30 seconds, but that was more of a physical issue. Like the guys needed to stop at some point. You need a break, man. And because they didn't have a melodic, breakdown where like everyone can chill for a second, like they had to stop it. Like that's how I always saw it. I was like, yeah, this is like, yeah, like, all right, chill. But yeah, no, most are, like hip hop, trap, everything is, max 2 minutes and 30 seconds right now. And then you have like extreme cases like BMW Kenny, that drops like songs like 25 seconds, 30 seconds. But yeah, it's like, I agree with you. It's a jingle. It's not a song anymore. And it's kind of a bummer because like this guy writes like dope stuff. So you're like, ugh. Like, it feels like you're going to the label and you're like, okay, so, you have 10 minutes, you're at Def Jam and you're like, okay, let me play you these 10 last songs, and you're just playing the chorus because people have 10 minutes for you. Like, this is how his record feels like. It's like, cool. Like, where did the verse go?
Are the labels cool with it? Like, because I know that in at least traditional record contracts, there's a minimum time requirement on an album. So are they cool with that?
Everything I'm talking about right now, it's independent stuff.
Oh, okay.
But look, man, like, I mean, in that world, like, all these kids, they understand, like, they have, like, millions of, Ayo and Theo, they were with BMG. They're still with BMG, but they started, like, dropping songs by themselves. Like, they understood. They're like, damn, like, we have, like, 5 million followers on Instagram, 7 million on YouTube. Like, why would we give, 80% to a major when we can actually make 100 or 200K just dropping that track in 2 weeks, and also most of these artists, they built social media. That's a discussion I have a lot with this type of artists. Like, they never really had a push to get big on social medias. They actually got big on social medias and made social medias be what they are, So it's like, for them, they're like, wait, like, why would I be giving a big cut of what I'm making to that label when I actually built my own following? And I totally agree with them.
I remember in the 90s, the movement to not have a label and to be independent was just starting. And there were a few artists who pulled it off. Like there was this female, I think she was folk. Man, I don't know because I never listened to her, but Ani DeFranco, who sold 4 million records independently in the 90s, which is fucking unbelievable. And then also the idea too was, in order to get signed to a real deal, you almost had to already be big on your own. So I know that like bands like Hootie and the Blowfish or Dave Matthews Band, these massive, massive bands sold like hundreds of thousands of copies on their own, at shows. Creed did the same thing. Disturbed did the same thing. So this idea that in order to get onto a huge label, you didn't need a label started to become a thing. And then eventually the idea that you didn't need a label at all started to, I think, permeate. However, I think that at least up until recently, that idea was bullshit, because the only artists who really, really could do it without a label were, an exception here and there, like Ani DeFranco was a total exception, or artists who were already big and then decided to go independent, like Nine Inch Nails or Radiohead. But local bands can't think that they're Nine Inch Nails or Radiohead. However, in the past few years, I think this has actually started to become very true, that you really can be independent and not need a label. And that's a beautiful thing about the time period we live in.
Yeah, this is amazing. I mean, I see a lot of projects, especially like these DJs that are like producers that put tracks together. They come from private equity and they are doing that with their friends. Like they know that they can get started with like 50K, and they have 5 friends that want to help them. They directly have their LLC and like get things started. They keep their artistic direction the way they want. They can drop whenever they want. It's like there is no proper cycle, label cycle, and like album cycle, whatever, like they can. And this is cool. This is a good new era on that end for sure.
Man, I think maybe metal bands and rock bands are going to need to figure out a way to adapt to this.
I think Falling in Reverse, Ronnie is doing pretty well with that. Like this guy went like from dropping albums to just dropping singles, and his streams have never been that big. Like Popular Monster got gold. He's getting like gold on singles, like rap artist. And I think it's because he understood is like, well, the attention span now, kids, they cannot like really listen to a full album. But if I do something crazy on one song and really push that one song like Drake does, like all these guys, it's I think it kind of like started showing the way like 2018 with that, or early 2019, like copying, like I would say, or getting inspired of what the urban community is doing. So if everyone could start doing this, it would be cool. It would be really cool. Like there would be more interactions, like it would be more alive, because especially right now there is no tours. So no single, no album, because there is no tour. It's hurting even more like the rock community, in my opinion.
The other problem I think with rock and metal is that it was so focused on having 2 or 3 good songs and then whatever 7 other songs that just were whatever for so long.
With some cool riffs.
Yeah, some cool riffs here and there, that I think that for the most part, the audience lost faith in it. And like I think it's something that happened gradually. But I just remember buying albums and being super disappointed many times, many times. Just you get it and it's like 2 awesome songs and then shit. And you just wasted a bunch of money.
I always have that joke in the studio, like when the song is not that great, when I'm working on a single, I say, oh yeah, this would be a great song 7. Like meaning like, yeah, after your singles, like, when the album starts being boring, yeah, that's pretty boring. Let's put it in there. But yeah.
Well, yeah, my point being that if metal bands and rock bands started to focus on making the best songs they possibly can only, just put your energy into really making the best songs possible, maybe there's some hope. Because really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to great songs.
Definitely.
So why worry about the 7 bullshit songs?
Exactly. One song at a time, one great piece. That's better. That's for sure. I mean, I agree with you. Also, do you think that the rock world is ready, let's say normal times, right? Not in COVID mode, but is ready to like put tours together out of like 2 singles?
No.
It's like it works for legacy artists. Like it works for Ronnie because he already has like 50 songs out. But like for new artists, like does that work? Because it's like it's not the same. Like for rappers, it's easy. They can have just one song. Then they get all this, like they pop up in the club and they do one song in the club. And they are paid for that, and it was great, and everybody knows they were there for the night, and they are part of the show, and they do 1 or 2 songs. They can make a career out of this. They can make a good living out of this. But like for rock artists, like what's the solution? What's the compromise to actually deliver like unbelievable songs and maybe just spend more time? But right now, the fight for content, quick, like consistent content, is also there. So
I do have an answer to what you're saying. Rock and metal bands tour way too much. Like, you shouldn't be hitting the same market 5 times in a year. And I think that that's hurt a lot. It's no longer special when you can go see the same band 4 or 5 times a year or twice a year. So I think that if bands focused on what we're talking about and building themselves up over time online through releasing great songs, eventually they'll have enough out there to where they can do a tour and can play a full set. But the difference will be that people will actually give a fuck that they're out there playing live. And I've seen that happen. Like, I have friends who got big online first, then started touring, and they have done great. I just kind of don't really totally believe that the way to make it as a heavy band these days is to put out an album and then jump in the van for 2 years. I think that's an outdated concept. I think you put out music and more music and more music, and you build that audience, and then you jump in the van. And maybe if you did it long enough, maybe you don't even need to do a van in the first place. Maybe you can just go straight to a tour bus. And I know that some people are going to get mad at me for saying that because they were in a van for a long time. But, you know, it's a changing world.
Yeah, the van thing is also great, you know, like the memories in the van are amazing, you know, so I do think, like, you know, what's hard though is if you drop like 2 songs that get you big and then you want to actually change your sound and make your music evolve, like this is what I love about the concept of like, you know, like having a full length, because you can start the record like sounding like where you were, so your fans, you know, understand and like slowly implement new ideas and finish your record in, you know, in a different place artistically, and get people to, you know, be introduced to your new sound, you know, and that's harder with like just dropping singles.
I agree.
But you can use your social medias to actually show that to people too. So there are solutions, but I miss big, great albums, man. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, you know, I feel like if a band has a big, great album in them, then they should definitely do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Like, I'm not saying that bands should never do that or anything like that. And I think that if they're capable, like, I don't think, and I know that we're talking about up-and-comers, but I don't think a band like Opeth needs to be doing singles, because their whole thing is big, expansive, long-form music. But I don't think that everybody has great albums in them. I think a lot of people have some great songs in them. So it kind of comes back to knowing yourself. And I think that it's better if an artist has great songs in them but not a great record in them, then there is a way to still develop a career. However, you know, again, like I said, I feel like if an artist does have the capability and the inspiration to do a full length that's actually great, that actually has no filler on it, well, cool, awesome, why not?
Definitely. I would love to see a full length of Luke Holland. We have the tracks. We have the tracks, man. But, you know, while trying to like collaborate with tons of like different singers, but like still with the same like musical direction, and you know, like we're dropping one single at a time right now, but I think like it would make even more noise if like, you know, it was a full length album dropped by a drummer. I think this would be crazy. This would be really cool right now. So hopefully we get this done.
And that's also an audience that likes that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyways, Charlie, I think this is a good place to stop the episode. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to hang out. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure too. I had a lot of fun. A lot of good insight.
Yeah, man, I had a really good time. We should do this again sometime.
Whenever. I would love to.
All right, then. Another URM podcast episode in the bag. Please remember to share our episodes with your friends, as well as post them to your Facebook and Instagram or any social media you use. Please tag me at EYAL Levy URM Audio, at URM Academy, and of course, tag our guests as well. I mean, they really do appreciate it. In addition, do you have any questions for me about anything? Email them to me at eyal@urm.academy. That's EYAL @urm.academy, and use the subject line, Answer Me EYAL. All right, then. Till next time, happy mixing.
You've been listening to the Unstoppable Recording Machine podcast. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit urm.academy and press the podcast link today.